President Trump's stance on Russia has evolved over years, culminating a recent shift where he echoed Putin's rhetoric on Ukraine without facing significant political consequences. Trump's relationship with Putin dates back to their 2018 Helsinki meeting, where he publicly sided with Putin over U.S. intelligence regarding election interference, causing backlash at the time. The Republican Party's base has grown increasingly sympathetic to Russia, seeing it as a defender of conservative values against Western liberalism, a narrative Moscow actively promotes. Trump's personal grievances with Ukrainian President Zelensky, stemming from his first impeachment, have influenced his dismissive stance on Ukraine's war effort. Since returning to office, Trump has distanced himself from Russia hawks, aligned U.S. rhetoric with Moscow's, and suggested expansionist policies similar to Putin's, raising concerns among Western allies. Elon Musk announced that federal employees must report their weekly accomplishments or risks being considered resigned, causing confusion among government workers. The Office of Personnel Management, OPM, instructed employees to submit a summary of their tasks by Monday, though some agencies, like the FBI, paused responses for further review. Some federal officials and legal advisors questioned the legality of the request, leading to uncertainty and internal disagreements. Labor unions opposed the measure, vowing to challenge any unlawful terminations, while some employees felt insulted by the demand. Musk, overseeing government efficiency efforts, has implemented cost-cutting measures leading to significant layoffs, but the White House clarified that he has no formal decision-making authority. The U.S. federal government, the nation's largest employer, is laying off workers, potentially impacting the job market depending on the number and types of jobs lost. Current estimates suggest around 30,000 layoffs, but hiring freezes and a deferred resignation program could push the number much higher. Up to 475,000 federal jobs could be cut, affecting economic activity, especially in regions with a high concentration of government employees. Federal job cuts also impact contractors and local economies, potentially reducing consumer spending and disrupting services. The uncertainty around job cuts, along with other economic concerns like tariffs and immigration restrictions, is contributing to rising public anxiety about unemployment. Despite initial investor skepticism, AI spending is surging as tech giants, governments, and venture capitalists invest heavily in reasoning models and AI agents. Unlike traditional large language models, reasoning models require significantly more computational power and resources, increasing the demand for microchips and electricity. Companies like OpenAI, DeepSeek, and xAI are competing to develop advanced reasoning models, pushing the AI industry toward even greater resource consumption. Major tech firms plan to invest over $215 billion in AI infrastructure in 2025, as reasoning models become the standard for AI applications. Experts predict AI demand could increase 1,000-fold over the next decade, making AI an integral part of everyday digital interactions. The U.S. Department of Justice is investigating United Health Group's Medicare billing practices, focusing on how diagnoses were recorded to trigger extra payments. The probe follows reports that Medicare paid United Health billions of dollars for potentially questionable diagnoses, leading DOJ attorneys to interview medical providers. United Health stock dropped 7%, losing over $30 billion in market value, with its competitor Humana also experiencing a decline. The investigation is separate from an ongoing DOJ antitrust probe into United Health's business practices, including its attempted acquisition of a home health company. United Health has denied any wrongdoing, arguing that its practices improve early disease detection and that allegations of fraud are unfounded. At the Conservative Political Action Conference, Trump supporters strongly backed his aggressive approach to cutting government jobs and spending, despite concerns from some Republicans about the impact on the 2026 midterms. Elon Musk, leading Trump's cost-cutting efforts, received a hero's welcome as he symbolically wielded a chainsaw, while conservative figures like Steve Bannon and Mike Johnson rallied the crowd. Many attendees believed that Trump's policies, including tax cuts and stricter immigration enforcement, would outweigh any potential midterm losses. Polls showed Trump's approval rating declining, but he remained overwhelmingly popular among Republicans, reinforcing confidence among his supporters. The event also drew controversy, including Bannon's salute, perceived as a Nazi gesture, and the presence of a pardoned January 6 convict celebrating his release. The Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency claimed $55 billion in savings, but an analysis found many claims overstated, with DEI and climate cuts making up a small fraction. DOGE listed over 1,100 canceled contracts totaling $7 billion in savings, but actual savings could be closer to $2.6 billion. Research agencies, including the Department of Health and Human Services and the Education Department, were among the most affected, with over $900 million in contract cancellations. Some contracts were misrepresented, such as a nearly completed survey project that saved no money, and a fully paid Fauci Museum exhibit listed as savings. Experts criticized Doge's methodology, noting that many listed savings were inflated or already spent, leading to inconsistencies in reported figures. President Trump is considering using 20% of the savings from Elon Musk's cost-cutting initiative to provide direct payments to Americans and reduce national debt. The proposal, called the Doge dividend, could potentially distribute $5,000 per tax-paying household if $400 billion in savings is achieved. Musk's Department of Government Efficiency aims to cut $2 trillion in federal spending, though it is unclear how much has been saved so far. Trump has also pushed for Saudi Arabia to invest $1 trillion in the U.S. and established an American Sovereign Wealth Fund. The administration is proceeding with layoffs of federal workers, starting with 6,000 IRS employees as part of budget reduction efforts. President Trump has rapidly reshaped U.S. foreign policy, distancing the country from its traditional allies and global commitments. His administration has signaled potential concessions to Russia, criticized Ukraine's leadership, and scaled back international aid programs, creating opportunities for rivals like China to expand their influence. Trump's transactional approach prioritizes economic and military self-reliance among allies rather than maintaining long-standing security agreements. His comments and policy moves, including suggestions of territorial expansion, have alarmed European leaders and challenged the post-World War II global order. The shift has left U.S. allies uncertain about America's reliability, with Trump supporters argue it forces other nations to take greater responsibility for their security and economic stability. President Trump has rapidly reshaped U.S. foreign policy, distancing the country from its traditional allies and global commitments. His administration has signaled potential concessions to the U.S. has designated 8 Latin American criminal groups, including 6 Mexican drug cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. The designation allows for stronger sanctions and potential military action against these groups. The Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel are among the most powerful groups named, both heavily involved in fentanyl trafficking. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum opposes the designation, advocating for increased cooperation instead. Businesses on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border fear economic disruptions due to the new classification. Illegal border crossings have continued to decline in the early weeks of the Trump administration. The Border Patrol made approximately 29,000 arrests in January, a significant drop from 47,000 in December. The Trump administration has enacted strict policies, including denying asylum claims and expanding deportation efforts, which have contributed to the decrease in crossings. A temporary decline in migration is common when a new administration takes office, as migrants wait to see how policies are enforced. Despite the decline in arrests, migrants may attempt more dangerous routes to enter the U.S. undetected, as they can no longer claim asylum. Ukrainian President Zelensky criticized U.S. President Trump for repeating Russian propaganda, rejecting Trump's claim that Ukraine started the war. Zelensky emphasized that Trump's position widened the gap between Ukraine and the U.S. and expressed frustration over being excluded from U.S.-Russia negotiations. Trump suggested Zelensky should hold elections and criticized him for not ending the war, while Zelensky countered with polling data showing his strong public support. Ukrainian soldiers and civilians reacted with anger to Trump's remarks, highlighting Russian war crimes and emphasizing the existential nature of their fight. Amid these tensions, Russia launched large-scale drone attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, further demonstrating, according to Zelensky, that Moscow cannot be trusted. President Trump's tariff threats are forcing global automakers, especially from Japan, Korea, and Germany, to reconsider their reliance on U.S. sales. His proposals include a 25% tariff on vehicle imports, prompting companies to explore alternative manufacturing strategies. While many foreign brands already have U.S. production networks, they still heavily depend on imports, making them vulnerable to trade restrictions. European and Asian car makers are strategizing how to shift production, but logistical and financial challenges complicate rapid changes. As policy details remain uncertain, automakers continue to assess their options while navigating complex global trade dynamics. Some Trump supporters are thrilled with his rapid policy changes, while others, including swing voters, are concerned about the consequences. Voters worry about job security due to government layoffs, and some regret their votes after seeing aggressive immigration enforcement. Others applaud Trump's swift action on immigration, government cuts, and foreign policy, seeing them as exceeding expectations. Some regret supporting Trump due to controversial policies like mass deportations and renaming the Gulf of Mexico, while others believe his approach will eventually lead to compromises. Polls show America is divided. About a third fully support Trump, while many disapprove or any concerned about the pace and impact of his administration's actions. Some January 6 rioters who received pardons argue that their pardons should also cover unrelated crimes, such as murder conspiracies and child pornography discovered during riot investigations. Edward Kelly, convicted of plotting to murder FBI agents investigating his January 6 actions, claims his conviction should be overturned due to Trump's pardon. Other defendants are similarly trying to dismiss charges like illegal gun possession and online solicitation of minors, arguing these stem from their January 6 arrests. Fears of retaliation have grown as pardoned rioters publicly share names and photos of prosecutors, judges, and law enforcement officials involved in their cases. Some pardoned individuals have already encountered new legal trouble, including violent altercations with police, with one man fatally shot during an arrest attempt. Major U.S. banks including Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and Citigroup are scaling back public mentions of their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to avoid legal and federal scrutiny. This shift follows broader corporate retreats from DEI initiatives after the 2020 protests, with companies like Ford, McDonald's, and Google also reducing their DEI commitments. Banks are modifying DEI-related programs, such as Morgan Stanley's Scholarship Initiative, to focus on economic need rather than race-based criteria. JP Morgan and HSBC have significantly reduced DEI references in their reports and web pages, while Citigroup has removed promotional material supporting transgender and non-binary customers. Legal pressures and political scrutiny, including a recent executive order from President Trump, are driving banks to reevaluate their DEI strategies, though some may continue such efforts discreetly.